I now have the honor of introducing a man who has been blowing minds since day one of chemistry class with both his scientific demonstrations and life talks, Mr. J. Wiley.
Talking about. Hello. I like to do an exercise with some of my classes to give perspective on life. We start the exercise with an estimate of the projected lifespan. We'll be optimistic. Let's use 85 years. My Aunt Phyllis just turned 91 and she's doing great. If we use 85 years for an expected lifespan, that's 31,000 days. 31,000 days. Most of you are 18 years old. That's pushing 7,000 days. That means you're already 20% into a lifespan. I point this out to ground us in reality. You see, life is not an endless stream of one day after another. There's a beginning, there's a middle, and there'll be an end. And there's no guarantee that we'll get our 30,000 plus days. At Tim Milne's memorial service, Father John Fuchs pointed out that his sudden and tragic loss is a shocking reminder to us how fragile life is. It can be taken from us in a moment. It is a reminder that every day is a gift. Last fall, you walked alongside one another at Beacon Rock along the Columbia River at the senior pilgrimage. You heard testimonies from your classmates about their spiritual walk with the Lord. This spring, many of you were at the Magus as you went deeper in your love for the Lord. And last year, you had the experience of the junior encounter. You found out that you are loved by your family, by your friends, and the big news, the good news, is that you are loved by God, the creator of the universe. In his book, The Jesuit Guide to Almost Everything, Father James Martin explains that God loves you as an individual, not simply in the abstract. God cares about you personally, much as a close friend would. This love is transformational. And now the question is, how will you reflect that love? We think of Jesus as being the light of the world. But in Matthew 5:14, Jesus says that you are the light of the world. And let your light shine before others, all for the glory of God. At a recent Mass, Father Fuchs reminded us that St. Ignatius encourages us to revisit the Scriptures. We're all familiar with the parables, the prodigal son. The younger son takes his inheritance and squanders it on wild living in a distant land. Famine hits, and in his destitute state, he finds himself feeding pigs for a local farmer. And when he comes to his senses, he realized that hired servants at his father's home had food to eat and warm shelter. So he heads back home on the long journey and does not expect to be welcomed back as his son, but as a hired servant. And when he was still a long way off, his father saw him and ran to him. Put the best robe on him and a ring on his finger. Bring the fattened calf. Let's have a feast and celebrate, for this son of mine who was dead is alive again. He was lost and is found. It's the response of the older son of the parable that was commonly overlooked. When the older son finds out about the celebration of his younger brother who was returning, he becomes angry and refuses to go in. The father comes out to talk to him. The older son says, look, all these years I've been slaving for you. Never disobeyed your But when this son of yours comes home after squandering your property on wild living, you kill the fattened calf and celebrate. My son, the father says, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. But we had to celebrate, for this brother of yours was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found. The father has two sons that don't get it. The younger son thinks that he's thrown away the father's love, along with his right to even be a son. The older son thinks he's earned the father's love. The love and the grace of the Lord is something we do not deserve and could never earn. And yet it is offered as a gift. You see, the father wants his sons to be with him. And that's what the Lord wants for you. The Lord wants you to be with him. When you go out those doors into the next chapter of your life, go with the Lord. And remember that you are the light of the world. And let your light shine before others, all for the greater glory of God. Thank you.